Это частный вопрос, это Центральная Азия. Это то, что происходит сейчас в связи с коронавирусом, и то, что, наверное, может быть, будет происходить потом.
So that we could discuss it in detail. All discussions at this moment are done in scenario form. We are no exception. We have a scenario. As you understand, the information from the sites of Central Asia would be the most exact one. That's why we invited the people from this area. I think also that the most important thing is that we would like today to make some forecasts, to think what will happen in the near future. Actually, we have to admit we don't know what will happen and how soon the events will be evaporating. So we would like to meet our friends, our colleagues, our experts, and we will broadcast our meeting to a wider audience who could attend and listen. And the last remark, my colleague on the screen has appeared. Catherine Pujol is with us, and I will give her an opportunity to say a few introductory words. Do you hear me? We see you and we hear you.
Say a few words in English for the beginning. Dear colleagues, I would like to thank Alexei Malashenko and his institute for organizing this online meeting with IFIAC, which followed our first seminar in Bishkek on November 12th last year. It's a pleasure for me to see how many people are registered to this event. And I am also grateful to our speakers. Some are already there. Mr. Valijon Abdulhamitov and Mr. Ergashev is there. We are still waiting for Kamil Malikov from Kyrgyzstan and Dosim Satpayev from Kazakhstan. And they will demonstrate their understanding of this incredible situation we are facing now. I must tell you that for simultaneous translation from English to Russian and Russian to English, you must pull the in the screen, in the right side of the screen, the signal interpretation, which is a globus on the right. I would say that we are all still traumatized by the global crisis, health crisis, and unaware of the many consequences that we can only imagine. Some people talk about a post-COVID world. It is not sure that it will be a really new world, but what is true, that is the economy, the world economy has stopped, totally stopped for 2-3 months. And the first question that arises is how states' population will overcome this enormous uncertainty and the instability of states that can raise after the so-called end of the problem. There, the key word, I would say, for the beginning of this seminar, the word of mistrust and trust that touch all aspects of the economy, trade relations, international relations, tourism, life in society, individual life. And in order to restore the economy, international relations, and all the relations, social relations, it is necessary to restore confidence and prevent the establishment of what is called the famous post-traumatic syndrome in the post-COVID era. And to finish, I would say that we already understood that this virus, we will have to live with it for a certain time until the vaccine was found, maybe a long time. And in Central Asia, the number of cases is not so high, but still, and the number of the deaths is not so high. And the question of this pandemic is to reconsider the organization of international relations, the balance, the trade balance, And also, we can think about it, the idea of for the governments to create a system of much efficient social control, which is already for some countries already there, with the good excuse of the health protection. So I hope that our webinar will be able to answer some questions, some of these questions, and we'll open the floor for further discussions. And now I'm pleased to give the floor to Mr. Jean-Christophe Bass, the Chief Executive Officer of the Dialogue of Civilization Research Institute. Please.
Thank you, Madame Pujol, for your words of introduction. And welcome everybody, everyone connected from all parts of the regions, but also from all parts of the world. We are very grateful to all the partners, and particularly to IFEAC for joining forces with the Dialogue of Civilization Institute. I don't want to be too long, just for those of you who don't know the Dialogue of Civilization Institute, I'd like just to mention that this organization is based in Berlin, in Germany, and its goal is to provide a global platform of dialogue among the multiple culture and civilization, with the aim to forge and to promote shared worldviews. We like to portray the Dialogue of Civilization Institute as the first ever multilateral think tank. We don't belong to any country. We don't belong to any school of thoughts. Our aim is really to provide a platform where the different perspectives can be collecting and exchanging all together. And so this is a new development, and we are working in three fields of work: economics, geopolitics, and culture and society. Today, we are very pleased to host this webinar looking at the region in Central Asia, which is a region very important in the agenda and the preoccupation for DOC. As probably some of you know, DOC has a very important office also in Moscow, which is, of course, the office also of the chairman and the founder of the Dialogue of Civilization Institute, Dr. Yakunin, who was the former CEO of Russian Railways. So we have also a global presence with offices in China, in India, in Brussels, in Buenos Aires, in complement to the headquarters in Berlin and the office in Moscow. So we hope that you will enjoy this discussion, and also that you will remain involved in further activities of the Dialogue of Civilization Institute, because we really want to hear and to foster the participation from all parts of the world in the global making of the world that we all want to shape all together. Thank you.
Okay, I think I have to say a few more words for introduction before giving the floor to Alexei and the beginning of the seminar. Я буду говорить по-русски, чтобы дополнить то, что я уже
I
сказала.
will speak in Russian. We are now switching the channels, and I will focus myself on the issues that have to be discussed during our webinar. As I already said, I think that I have an idea that after the crisis, we have to rebuild trust. Because the problem is that mistrust is now prevailing. I would like to see the scenario that countries of Central Asia would be more inclined to come closer to their historical neighbors, to build up this trust. They will be, I hope, more trustful to their immediate neighbors, like Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. So they would continue their food exchange programs. Same would happen with Kazakhstan. And same may happen with the former Soviet Union countries that can supply these countries in Central Asia with important sources that are viable economically. Also would resolve security issues. This is the first idea that I got. The second problem is the problem of China. Naturally, China is not out of the agenda. People look at China with suspicion. What will happen in the nearest future is important because Central Asian countries do rely to a major extent on what is happening in China. This is also a financial problem because there are huge debts that the Central Asian countries owe to China. And evidently, these relations between Central Asian countries and China are important because they are neighbors. Therefore, we will also look at these developments. There are also some other partners in the European Union, for instance, and we have the feeling that Central Asian countries are very pragmatic. They will look at as countries, as places of interest. They would look first, second, third place in the way European countries will cope with pandemic. Germany, I feel, in this respect, that has accumulated huge experience. It would be very important and favorably received in Central Asian countries because they got good results. So that can be imitated. These are the first ideas that I put on paper, and I also have some concern over the human rights, human freedoms. I think that might be interesting to you in Doc Research Institute to think in future or to make a sort of social surveillance. I fear that pandemics would allow a free hand for the governments to spy over the population. And I very much hope that though the technical means are already there, I hope that we will have public and social control in the post-COVID world to retain the privacy and rights. Now I'm giving the floor to my friend, moderator, Alexei Maloshenko. Welcome. Thank you, Catherine. You did important remarks, introductory statements, and I have in my section two presenters. Dasim, is he here? No, not yet. But we will hope he will join us in a jiffy. And I'm giving the floor to Bakhtiyar Ergashev, Director of the Center of Research Initiatives in Uzbekistan, Tashkent. Our webinar is evolving in a rather unpredictable way. Let's give the time limit about 8 minutes to the speakers and then have time for the comments, questions, and exchange of opinions. Welcome, Bakhtiyar. Welcome, my dear colleagues. I would be trying to stick to the time limit. In my presentation, I would concentrate on Uzbekistan. I think the situation here can easily be transferred to other countries of Central Asia due to conditions that are similar in the region. Speaking of COVID itself, and I was in favor of a quarantine, the strictest measures that can be done at the very initial moment. Then it would allow us to pass through the initial stages with less casualties. 12th March was the first case revealed in Uzbekistan with imposed strict regulations, quarantine regulations. It started to work. And I can say freely that we have only 2,600 contagion, 12 victims, unfortunately. For the country of 2 million is a good result. So there are serious problems with the medical equipment. We have managed to succeed in containing the pandemic in the country due to the strict regulations. Also to the self-isolation that people do observe. So what are the predictions for the future? If you look at in our Institute at Political Economic Analysis, we try to make some analysis and projections, to calculate them in numbers, to look what a post-COVID period would look like and what social processes would be provoked by it. The most important conclusion: reforms started by the new president of Uzbekistan in 2016 and 17. They were untypical due to conditions. Power transit occurred without excesses. There was a sort of a consensus what will happen, but having 27 billion golden reserves, the government could start social reforms. And everything was okay until the pandemic started. Virus is here from abroad. Investment stopped. The model of expert-oriented development that was pushed by President Mirziyoyev and import substitution policy that was abandoned. Now this new line is in conflict, and the virus is having a strong impact on both the dynamics of reforms and on the expectations. Primarily, we have to keep in mind that we expect the reduction of the volume of regional trade. Last year, we had a sort of an explosion of interregional trade, and today, with the closed borders, this trend has been reverted. And we expect that the reduction of interregional communication and trade would be not less than 40% compared to what happened last year. Last year, the foreign trade between Uzbekistan and Tajikistan increased by 32%. Today, we don't expect it. So this will happen with all other countries of the region. And the last year figures that we received would be challenged. And that's a serious regional challenge to us. And we have to work on it. How to cope with this is another question. I hope that we will have the third consultative meeting that will take place this year. Hope it will be dedicated not only to measures how to contain the crisis, but how to overcome its consequences. The calculations of our center show that 2.5% GNP growth we enjoyed last year. This year, we would not have more than 2.5% of GNP increase maximum. 2.5 is also the estimate of the World Bank. The International Monetary Fund gives 1.7. So this is the range of expectations for the year. The country that wanted to have 5.5 GNP growth at best will have half of that. This is a severe blow on all the projects and initiatives that we launched in our country. And we planned to achieve these targets. Now, let us understand that if today in the Russian Federation we had 2.5 labor migrants that worked in Russia, we might have 1 million on 1,200,000 migrants that will return to our country. And only those who were in Russia. That would be a serious social strain for our country when the migrants will return. We have to find them work, the means of substance. And this is a factor that is a challenge to our country for the coming year or year and a half. And we all understand that we are waiting a serious reduction in exports. Automobiles, natural gas has dropped by half the consumption. We supply that to China, some Russia. A reduction of oil prices is a heavy blow to our financial welfare. Therefore, this year is a year of serious challenge and crisis. And I'm thinking that the president of Uzbekistan realizes this quite well. So now we need to work anti-crisis measures that can soften down these challenges, these threats that are introduced by the pandemic. In fact, I'm running out of time, but I hope I will answer your questions. So, we see as experts the situation is very dire. Thank you. Thank you, Bastiar. Thank you for the interesting presentation. Second, informative, condensed, and to the point. To be honest, today is a valor. We already got some questions and considerations toward your presentation, and I invite to the mic Mr. Dubnov, researcher and journalist. Arkady, if you hear me, please respond. Mr. Dubnov. Arkady Dubnov.
Вот Аркадий Дубнов тут появился. Где он?
He has emerged, Arkady. Yeah. Do you see me? Do you hear me? We hear you. Yeah. Nice to see you, colleagues, to hear you, colleagues. I do not very well understand whether you see me or not, but that is perhaps not the most important. Thank you for your invitation in this webinar. I was partly listening to Bakhtiyar's presentation because internet was not on. Yeah, the sound returns. Yes. In Uzbekistan. Yeah. Now you can see me. All right. Да. Do you hear me? Due to measures according to recommendation of World Health Organization, these countries of Central Asia managed to take serious measures to contain the virus. And this is also connected with political reasons. Countries of Central Asia are very stern in taking important measures against the pandemic. These are the countries that had a change in political power in the three countries. And that is an important factor with different ways in different formats. But the transitory process has occurred in Central Asian countries. The young leaders, I would say modernists, well understanding the threats to security and the region and in the world at large, leaders that can meet this challenge. In the two remaining countries, where old leaders are still in power, with rather primitive understanding of the threat that we are facing, the consequences and the threats, in my view, loom very dangerously because we do not understand the way of the developments, though we don't have enough information. So we cannot understand the scope of pandemic. And in this connection, we would like to have more cooperation with World Health Organization because it is insufficient today. There are less opportunities in Turkmenia. The World Health Organization is not ready to break the undesire to communicate. The third summit, Central Asian, that had to take place in Bishkek, I hope it will take place. And hopefully the full-fledged cooperation between the regional countries can occur. But there are some doubts whether we understand that there are some countries that do not demonstrate a lot of interest for the independent cooperation between these five countries. In this connection, I don't see whether we have a Kazakhstan representative here. On scenario, we did have him. I know that we had, no, his Dosim is not Satpaev. I'm concerned about the situation in Kazakhstan primarily because the team of the president is taking strong measures and he is reacting very fast to what is changing. He divided the country into 3 zones, red, green, and yellow, in terms of danger. And I would like to understand how and in what way what is happening today in Kazakhstan from the point of view of political transit can provide the control of authorities over the processes that evolve. There are serious problems uh, facing up the challenge of COVID. I'm worried that the neighboring countries would feel much more comfortably if they would know the political trends in the country, in Kazakhstan. In Uzbekistan, we don't have this problem, and then we will not talk on that. But Kazakhstan problems are extremely important in my view, because it is one of the locomotives in the group of five, and the way that Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan would be able to cope with it depends on how they're coping with it now. And that would also have an impact on cooperation between the countries of the region. Yes, Bakhtiar, somehow very briefly to comment what Arkady said. Микрофон ему надо включить. I hear you, but whether you do hear me, it's another question. Right. If you do, then I would very briefly respond to the fact that actually Mr. Dubnov is very right when he says that relations between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, the successful cooperation, is the key to the future development of Central Asian republics. And Sardop water tank get the calamity in Kazakhstan and in Uzbekistan. In the information field, it was presented in a provocative way, but in fact, we wanted to be used to spoil or to tarnish or to keep these relations between the two countries to the boiling point. There we got the groups of protest, we got fake information, we had the challenges, there were some casualties, human lives, and there was a lot of harm in this accident. But I think even in this case, what we got about trust or mistrust is a key term. We managed to get away, to slip away from the confrontation. And perhaps there is an example of successful overcoming and meeting the technical challenge. And we understood that there are no conditions for legal monitoring of the catastrophes and accidents of this sort. Thank you. Thank you, Bakhtiar. It was interesting. You've touched upon important issues. Unfortunately, it happens that today we are not having a Kazakhstan representative. I'm sad to say this. He's not with us. And now I would give the floor to my colleague from Berlin, Garli, who would say very briefly a few words that might be very interesting about the project that we are doing together with our institute. You're welcome.
Бехроз.
Где он?
Бехроз. Фамилия его выступила, но ни голоса, ничего я пока не слышу.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Cruz is here.
Very good. This is Berus from Berlin office. Yes, as my colleague mentioned, at DOC, we are currently working on a project which actually aims to measure the level of connectivity and integration among the Eurasian states, including the 5 Central Asian countries. As we know, these economies were actually disintegrated at the early years of 1990s, but several efforts have been made to basically integrate them, including the establishment of Eurasian Economic Commission and other regional institutions, which actually they are trying to not only measure but to promote integration among themselves, which it could happen through increasing trade, promoting investments, and other basically institutional integration, which helps eventually to integrate. And it will definitely lead to economic development at the end. So at this point, since my time is just very limited, I would like to just speak very shortly by indicating that alongside this project, which actually called Eurasian Integration Index, we have made use of several dimensions, including institutional integration, social integration, monetary integration, trade, and also infrastructure integration. And within each dimension, we have several indicators which comes from various sources that it helps us to measure. At this point, we have made some progress. We have some basically papers and reports that have been published. We have made partnerships, including Asian Development Bank and also United Nations University, the Center for Regional Studies. And at this point, we are open to new thoughts and new suggestions on the dimensions and also indicators. So please, the project is on our website, doc-research.org. So please visit the website and you can have a look on the concept note of the projects. And we are, as I mentioned, we are open to thoughts. We are open to collaborate. If you have any idea, if you are willing to collaborate, because we want to do it, so please contact us. You can contact me directly. The email address is there, or you can contact office. Then we can definitely go ahead. Thank you so much for the time.
Спасибо, Бехруз. Это было очень интересно, я считаю, полезно. И тогда я хочу напомнить, что у нас очень давно установились тесные связи.
We had established close links on all Central Asian countries, with only one exception. You know that I mean Turkmenistan, the country that is so closed for any sort of cooperation. But we have good relations with international institutions that do studies on Central Asian countries, and I hope we will be successful with this project. We do communicate. We have with us Katin Pujol, director of the French Institute for the Study of Central Asian Issues. So we have a reliable basis for scientific exchange and research. Catherine, I am now giving you the floor. We are now shifting to the second part of our webinar, because those people who promised to speak are with you. Do you hear me? Yes, do you hear me? Of course. Yes, we do hear you. Now, I'm very happy to say and to give the floor to Malikov Kadir, the member of the Kyrgyzstan Presidential Council and the connoisseur of Islam in Kyrgyzstan, a very respected person. I'm welcome and happy to see you with us. As you understand, you're having the floor. You hear me? Says Kadir. Nice to be with you, gentlemen and ladies. Justin is saying that he heard us. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. You know, actually, I have my 8 minutes, if you allow me.
Пожалуйста,
Я очень коротко, большими тогда мазками буду.
Let me give you the broad picture. As a former artist, I will use the big brush strokes. Looking at the consequences of COVID on the religious situation, on the security issues, I would say that, of course, it's connected with economic, social sphere. But I'll give you examples that my country is heavily hit with the virus, COVID, about 1 million people that lost their jobs, 150,000 had lost their places, working places. Some of them can come back, but this niche would be occupied by the commodities from other countries. So the young people that do not find employment, they are angry with the inability of authorities to do something for them, to create conditions, and that gives some social tension as the critics of the parliament, of the authorities, of the government is rising. In social networks, we can see this criticism. The problem, as I see it, is, I would like to say, there are internal and external factors. In Kyrgyzstan, there are groups that are aggressively criticizing the politics. They criticize the official Islam, saying that they're the cause of bringing the virus because of the minor Hajj into the country. So the anti-Islamic feelings are high, insults, threats, saying that you are to blame and you have to pay for that.
Мы не слышали последнюю фразу. Скажите еще раз.
Да, идет очень сильная критика в соцсетях, да?
Social networks are filled with criticism And there is a split and conflict between secular and religious segments. Atheists say that they try to protect secular ideas. So there is a fragmentation within the country. There is not only north to south disintegration, disintegration in different regions of the country, but also the disintegration on the religious ground, confessional disintegration. And that split, that criticism, mostly criticism of religious attitudes in Iran, this says that external factors are having a major role of what is happening in the country. We have a strong social, psychological crisis and conflict. There are suggestions to limit the Ulema Council, the spiritual union. They also did the same that has been done in the different countries. And during Ramadan, namaz, and other ceremonies, they are not allowed to be done in public. And for this reason, with Muftiyat, we have not traditional clans. Salafi Jamaat is on the rise. They respond very strongly. Those who do not trust the official Islamic offices. And Kyrgyzstan, Amigit Jamaat is having the strong say here. So there is an opposition between Muslims. Official position of Muftiyat is one, and the opposition is saying different things. The other split is between Muslims and secular segments of the population. Hizbut Tahrir, how it will react? We are very much worried with that because nationalistic trends there are very dangerous. Hizbut Tahrir states that this is the punishment by the Allah on the United States, on China, and Muslim countries that suffered less. So they say that's the punishment from God. So this rhetoric of this punishment is used by Islamic leaders. But the Salafid groups, radical groups, they do not give assessment. They more try to use the protest feelings, the negatives, Muslim attitudes. They don't say that this is the punishment. They say that this is the punishment of the weak Muslims, weak Muslim governments for not listening to the instructions of God. So that is the criticism of spiritual office of Islam. And there is a suspicion also on untested information that big deal Jamaat is ready to use our migrants that lost work in Russia, in Moscow mostly, to use Kyrgyz migrants, Uzbeks, Tajiks, among these young people who lost the job. They would intensify their propaganda among the young people. So if we look at what is happening, there are some internal factors, but also external factors are playing a role. Because today we see on the whole that in general, geostrategic, geopolitical changes Central Asia are viewing the intensification of Chinese impact on the region. And naturally, the struggle between our countries, the increase of mistrust in Central Asia. I disagree that these countries will come closer. No, it seems on the opposite to me. That Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, at this point, that had good relations between Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. But if the time is over, I will answer only the question. Thank you, Kadir. It was very interesting what you have said. Your views are important. And we now understand that COVID allows us to see the split, social split, which increase the danger of splitting feelings. Now I give the floor directly to our colleague, Valijon, director of Research Center that contains extremism in Russian Tajiki Slavic University. Has he disappeared from the group? Valijon.
Валиджан потерял связи.
Lost connection with Valijon.
Подождем 1 минуту.
Waiting for another minute. Valijon.
Тогда что делаем, Алексей? Мы
Alexei,
смотрим, если вопрос есть.
any questions?
Вот он сейчас, по-моему, появится, Валиджан.
Да.
I hope he will emerge.
Где он?
Нет, нет его.
Он был все время. С
Он
самого
был.
начала.
Ну тогда
Нету его.
Нету его.
Нету его пока. Ну, может, он появится, я надеюсь, потом.
Тогда а потом уже вопрос, наверное. Ну, пусть Досом скажет. Все-таки тут.
Вопрос по поводу религии.
I have a question. Do we have questions to Kadir on the split in the society? Any interventions to Kadir Malikov? Anatoly Ivanov got a question to Kadir Malikov. Let me sound it.
Ой, что-то меня перекинуло наоборот. Извиняюсь.
A moment. Can you read it out loud for me? In Kyrgyzstan, Daesh is very openly acting. Is that true? No. We have certain information in social networks that's trying to push through in a very concealed way. But research allows us to see the activities. Inga Sikorskaya wanted to ask a question. Laura Yerekesheva is with us. Apart from speaking in social networks, how the views of Jamaat is relayed in official meetings. We practically do not have official platform for interaction to express the positions, and between secular and the religious part of the nation there are no direct connection. Then you have to switch to social networks, and there you are so aggressive. because social networks give a feeling of anonymous attitude. If we compare situation of 1913 and 2014, they are on the increase. There is a difference of Jamaats, Salafi brands of Jamaat that are oriented on external Shia scholars, that are Sunni scholars, are scholars from Saudi Arabia, and with every year, the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran, religious conflict, is on the increase. And these instruments of influence against Shia, it is visible in our Islamic trend. We have only a small Azeri community of Shia believers. Most of them are Sunnis in the country, and they're absolutely traditionalistic Sunni followers, politically or ideologically. They are against Shiism and Shia things and against Iran in general. And that is what traditionalists of Salafites, they have instruments of influence. They're using soft power and impose to our population anti-Shia sentiments. And this seems to me not only happening in Kyrgyzstan, also in Tajikistan mostly, and in Uzbekistan. Another question I received, can I answer it? Yes, please, it's a dialogue. Sergei Naumov asked me about religious extremism. I can say that we survey the situation in our center. We monitor it, and I can say this is true. In the last 2 years, we actually see the intensified propagandist communication in the web. It's a real trend. It's on the increase. We observed one important fact. Ideologists and propagandists of religious sort, some of them are very radical, some are less radical. All of them are very well using nationalists in the network who are very aggressive with the criticism on nationalistic positions. So we see that there is a sort of collusion between. We made last year some tests on the security issues and how to contain the spread of rightist feelings. And we've observed a number of signals that they say that Islamist ideologies are on the rise. They managed to find connection to nationalists, and they both raised against Hamza Hazid, against Uzbeki modern theater. They fought with the cultural performance, with the defenders of the secular way of Asian development, and managed, I can say, to get a victory over secular attitudes in this field. I finished my answer. Very interesting, Bakhtiyor. Now, I know that our colleague from Dushanbe is having some problems with the web. I asked him to send his presentation. Then we will read it. We must know what is happening there. Where until April, there were no COVID cases reported. So we want to know. There are many burials, Muslim burials, and perhaps there are 800 death cases there. We want to hear something from him. And now then I'll give the floor to Alexei for him to moderate this seminar. Catherine, hello. I'm sorry to be late. There were technical mishaps. Important is that you are with us. Dasim? What is the right way to say? Dasim is co-chairman of Alliance of Analytical Organizations of Kazakhstan, and he is a member of the Presidium of Council on International Relations. Of course, we have problems with the timing. Please, you have the floor. Nice to see you all on the screen, dear colleagues. I heard everything, but I couldn't pose. Therefore, I'm with you from the very beginning. Alexei. I saw that you were very inquisitive in demanding me to talk and speak about Kazakhstan situation.
Что-то со звуком опять. Ничего не слышно.
Не слышно, Дасим.
Не везет сегодня Досому. Вот просто такое. Ничего.
Налево экрана есть микрофон. Вы нажимали на микрофон?
There is a mic on the left. Did you switch it on?
Все, зачем? Нет, там есть какой-то звук, но он просто плохо работает, звук.
Так, попробуем. Совсем?
Совсем ничего не слышно.
Audio settings настройте. Странно, потому что сначала слышно было.
Техника.
Да.
Сегодня не день Досымы.
Так, если ничего нет, тогда, может быть, мы попросим Алексея задать вопрос. Как ты считаешь, Катрин?
Давай, давай.
Старостина.
Пока он настроится, надеюсь, давайте, Алексей, ваш вопрос.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги. Рад вас приветствовать из города Екатеринбурга. И два слова про сказанное. Ковид действительно новое совершенно явление, которое парализовало всю экономическую жизнь в нашей стране, в ваших странах. И миллионы трудовых мигрантов внезапно остались без работы и не могут уехать к себе на родину. И здесь, в общем-то, не нужны определенные меры поддержки правительство нашей страны им оказало. В частности, все продлили документы до 15 июня, разрешили работать без оплаты налога на патент. Но десятки, сотни семей в действительности голодают. Лично принимал участие в развозе продуктовых наборов таким вот семьям, нуждающимся, которые внезапно потеряли работу. И понимаю, что в будущем эти люди тоже очень долго будут выбираться из того положения, в котором они оказались, потому что в отличие от части россиян, у них вообще никакой подушки безопасности не было. Еще одной очень уязвимой категорией в России, по крайней мере, стали религиозные организации. Внезапное закрытие всех храмов, мечетей, синагог, более продолжительное, но тоже закрытие храмов Русской Православной Церкви катастрофическим образом сказались на их финансовом положении, потому что и часть прихожан потеряли работу, у них доходы снизились, у жертвователей крупных или средних бизнесменов появились тоже финансовые затруднения. Но в России как бы определенные меры господдержки были этим религиозным организациям оказаны. В частности, снижены тарифы на тепло, на газ, в частности, отменена оплата аренды, если таковая была, муниципальных помещений. И к коллегам у меня вопрос. Были ли какие-то меры поддержки религиозных организаций в ваших странах? Были ли какие-то случаи помощи духовенству, которое осталось без средств к существованию? Насколько остро этот вопрос стоит в ваших республиках? Вот мой вопрос.
Кадыр, можете ответить, да, наверное?
Kadir, can you answer this?
Были благодейственные организации, которые помогли на самом деле, да, в Кыргызстане.
Может быть, государственные органы как-то тоже оказывали какую-то поддержку.
Вы знаете, вот здесь самое интересное,
You know, the most interesting here is
по борьбе с коронавирусом государственный счет, конечно, поступило и большие средства, да, там
good
миллионов долларов,
donations, several $1 million from various organizations, from banks, but the population has a question: where this money was spent for? People have big problems. There's a vacuum of authority. It's a severe crisis of authority, of trust, of reinforcement of the belief in the rightness of the authorities. So there's a feeling that the population lives in one world and the leaders live in quite different worlds. Those who have lost their job do not have an opportunity to stay in more or less good conditions. They need to be helped. Those who were partly protected around Bishkek, so people are left without help, without assistance. And that's a big issue here of mistrust and growing disenchantment. Therefore, there are a lot of complaints. People themselves, not even on religious grounds. There are Islamic or other organizations, simple common people without affiliations. They are so-called volunteers. They get together, they got the food packed to distribute. So we have a situation like this, that only they do give some food help. As for the Muslim organizations, all the incomes that were received during Ramadan, we have lost all that. So we have to reconsider the whole budget. Hajj this year would be blocked. Now financial flow from Hajj is not there. Tourism has closed and the population is feeling bad. Things that come in electronic form. Now, this is an issue. How the services can survive. They will not have anything to keep their families. What do different jamaats do in terms of helping the population?
Да. Спасибо большое.
Thank you.
Алексей, сейчас попробуем с Дасим, если слышно его.
Let us try Dasim again. Dasim? Where are you?
Дасим.
Ну что поделаешь, вообще
Сейчас он старается. Дасим Сатпаев, мы вас просим выйти в эфир.
Сейчас. А слышно меня?
Меня слышно, коллеги?
Да, сейчас слышно.
Отлично, хорошо. Я просто другой компьютер подключил.
Хорошо.
Connected another computer, sorry. You have 8 minutes to talk. Okay. Being brief, I will touch two issues. Political consequences and the second issue, interstate relations, the players. Yes, for the first question on religion, I agree to the colleagues that what is happening in terms of political moments, that the countries of our region do have important problems, both in United Nations, in pandemics. It is strong in what has happened to us in the last epidemics. The virus will hit developing countries much harder because the flow of capital is cancelled, the export is down, and Kazakhstan is severely hit by these developments because it relied on, in its economic situation, on these factors. The government did not believe that such catastrophe could happen. And if the budget is like this, we understand that situation is not improving. We had budgetary cuts in incomes, and we have statements that 1.5 million would lose either job or will have a reduction, heavy reduction in financial sources of subsistence. Another factor is the government is somehow trying to find some money to support the population. But the problem is that the crisis that we are now having will get a major social impact on what is happening in the country. We are going to have a new class of new social poverty, and that will put a negative impact on the possibilities of progressive development. Financial sources, charity organizations are working, but not so efficiently as we hope to. There are some specific moments. We all have Chinese credits, and we have to pay for them. And also we have an active financial support coming from international financial institutions. World Financial Organization had negotiations with several countries. In Kyrgyzstan, we know that they got some money from China. So in the whole, the situation with the financial flows from abroad, they lead to the increase of local prices, to the cost of food basket, and that is a problem. If colleagues could share their positions on what the needle of finance is doing to our social situation, I would be grateful for you. On the south of Italy, we know that there is a lot of support to the population. We would like to have the same developments in our countries, but that is something that is still to be achieved. So informal networks can do this assistance, informal assistance to the segments of population most severely hit by the COVID crisis. Religious organizations traditionally were good at helping the poor believers. That was the case before, and that is the case now. So social rehabilitation of those who are affected by the crisis is another thing. So these formal networks, it is my estimation, they are on the increase in the activities. There is a need to support the most affected segments. If that is not there, the radicalization is at the door. As for the international relations, there are 2 points. First, when there is a global emergency, everyone is for himself. We have seen that. There was no cooperation between Spain and Italy at the initial stage. And what is happening in Kazakhstan is the most important for Kazakhs, and they wouldn't support Uzbeks. And actually, that is a problem because the export-import relations are affected with this situation. So everyone is for themselves. Every government is trying to find salvation for itself, not for the neighbors. But the experience shows that a better way is to join hands and to do common measures that would be much more helpful, especially in terms of medical assistance, exchange of information, the labs that are working on the antivirus measures. So we could have these common projects on medical equipment, of medical goods. Let's look at what reality is about. What we are now having is just the beginning. We may be at the time when the super virus could emerge, and that would be something much, much, much more dangerous than what we have now. So we have to get ready to prepare and to join hands in making the cross-cultural cooperation. I think that China would benefit from the situation. China would be the first to get out of the crisis. It would open up new credit lines to Central Asian countries. And that is a problem to be considered. So China would play the key role, I think. They have more opportunities to extend their influence, contrary to what happens in Russia, that got itself in a crisis and would not be able to help. Due to technical bugs, we lost a lot of time. Catherine, maybe you would say in a minute. I would not even make a conclusion, just a couple of remarks. I talked a lot. I would like to thank all the participants. And I realized that there is interesting information to reflect on. We don't see the end of this history. But let's look what will happen in the future. I think webinars like that are very useful, and hope we will have less technical bugs in the future. And I would like to ask you all to give parts of your remarks so that we could put them on the website of our institute in FIAC, so that people could read your contributions. I give the floor for the final remarks to Alexei. Catherine just now spoke about some texts, written remarks. If the webinar got an input for your opinions, we would all welcome that. Always Doc Research Institute will be helpful here. We are in the process. We are living here for a long time. I hope this is not the last of our webinars. We will continue that, and that would be useful to all of us. I hope that you were satisfied with this conversation. Thank you all for participation, and let's cooperate in the future. All the best.
Выключаемся.